Hello everyone and welcome to their Teamfight Tactics Guide. Today we're going to talk all about the 9.17 meta, what has been shaping up in the game, and how you can use this information to win your matches. Now there are a couple major adjustments that happen in the 9.17 patch that shaped the meta that we're playing right now. The first is obvious and going to be the addition of Pantheon as a new champion in Teamfight Tactics, who is a dragon guardian. This means that you can combine dragons together a lot easier and guardians become a lot more flexible. And really, he's just an exceptionally strong 5-cost unit and is an instant buy in almost every single scenario. He brings that much to the table. We also saw a pretty big nerf bat to the whole interplay between healing and anti-healing. Grievous Wounds, the debuff that reduces healing, went from 100% down to 80%. And we saw a big reduction of Bloodthirster and Hextech Gunblade, which really is what hypercarries like Jinx and Draven were using to keep themselves alive in a team fight. So now we're seeing a big uprise in demons, guardians, and dragons, and a lot of magic damage from sorcerers as well. Coupled with the fact that we saw Gnar go up quite a lot in the last 2 patches, becoming a very strong damage dealer himself. And you'll see these changes reflected as a consistent theme in the 9.17 meta. So let's run through a quick overview of what you're going to be looking for in the builds for 9.17 so you have a good understanding of the items, the synergies, and the units. Your powerhouses are going to be either an Evelynn with a demon build because she just hits really hard with her ability. And just like Pantheon, when she uses her ability, she disengages her target, which means that she now has a chance to reset the fight and won't be focus fired by whoever was attacking her before. Pantheon is obviously a big powerhouse in the meta right now. Not only does he apply AoE dot damage that's percentage based to the entire enemy team, but he also singles out a good hypercarry in the backline, something that the Leona does well on top of that. So you're going to be very easily fitting the Leona and the Pantheon in almost every build that you have. In fact, you'll see them in every build I list here in this video. And then on top of that, you just need some good damage. So you can go 3 Shapeshifters with the Swain, the Gnar, and a Shyvana. Ashe is coming back big with the Ranger buff we saw in 9.17, so Ranger Knights is very popular. And then obviously Sorcerers like Aurelion Sol and Karthus, along with damage output from Brand, make a very good backline. Because we're seeing so many caster comps, a Hush is a really valuable item. Not only does it have mana, which every unit in the game besides Vayne can really use to have a strong efficacy, but it does have the chance on hit to prevent an enemy unit from gaining mana, which in and of itself is a little bit stronger than the demon buff as an offensive tool, and so putting this on many units will work really well. GA and Warmogs are obviously still very strong for defensive output, and then you can put Shojins and Rageblade on casters to make sure that they get their abilities off more often. I personally think that the Dragon's Tooth is one of the strongest items in the game right now. As soon as we saw a really big hit to the hypercarries like Jinx and Draven, and a lot of people moving over into caster comps like Sorcerers, Dragon's Tooth makes you that much stronger. And realistically, if you're running the Dragon combination with Pantheon and Aurelion Sol, or Shyvana and Pantheon, you're gonna get 2 units that have that 83% magical resistance. If you put your Dragon's Tooth on an Evelynn, or an Ashe, or a Swain, or a Gnar, you can keep them alive all the way until the end of the fight. And honestly, if you put on a Shapeshifter like Gnar or Swain, they become raid bosses. They're almost impossible to kill because their natural enemies with single target physical damage are kind of gone. In the current meta, everyone's running a lot of magic damage, so Dragon's Tooth is probably one of the best items that you can currently make. And of course, if you look at the right side of the screen for key units, the key synergies are pretty obvious here. You're gonna get demons, gonna be very strong with the output here. Your damage dealers are gonna be your sorcerers and your shapeshifters most often. Dragon comes naturally because you're putting the guardians with Leona and Pantheon into almost every build you do. And then because you have Karthus for damage output, putting either a Mordekaiser or a Kindred into the build works excellent. Now let's jump into the top 5 builds that are being played right now and talk why they are effective. The first of these is going to be the Demon Shapeshifter build. Demons are a really easy synergy to build right now, mainly because Brand, Evelynn, and Swain are all so incredibly powerful that it just lends itself. You already have 3 demons there. Add in a 4th demon with an Aatrox or a Morgana, you're going to get that demon bonus. Coupled with the fact that 2 patches ago, we saw the demon buff change from just mana drain to mana drain plus gaining mana when you proc. now means that any of the casters that are demons get their abilities a lot faster the higher amount of demons you get. So if you have 4 demon bonus, that means that Evelyn, Morgana, Brand, and Swain will all get mana faster every time they proc the demon bonus. You're obviously going to fit Pantheon and Leona into this build, as you do with almost every build in the game right now, because they're both highly valued units. And then you round it off to get the 3 shapeshifter bonus with Swain by putting in the dragon Shyvana and then putting in Gnar. Gnar's buffs make him a really strong damage dealer now, and there's another build that actually works really well with him too. So putting enough items on him to keep him safe works great. I would honestly put the Warmogs and the Dragon's Tooth on him just to make him a crazy powerhouse. He becomes a super tank with a CC initiation once he transforms, and if you put Dragon's Tooth on him, he's not going to get killed off by magic damage, and the Warmogs coupled with the max HP you get from the shapeshifter bonus makes him crazy good. Shyvana hasn't really changed too much. You put the Gunblade and the Warmogs on her to keep her alive. I see a lot of people that run Rageblade instead of RFC here, but I would personally recommend the rapid fire cannon. There is a Yordle build that works well, and RFC will keep you safe. And I think honestly, for a melee character like Shyvana, the added range of her not moving around a lot means that she is more likely to transform. And then once she does, she can hit any unit from anywhere on the board without having to move, which is excellent for a carry damage dealer like Shyvana. I think with the last patch, we're actually seeing basically only 2 positionings becoming the most common. Again, I have to caution you that no matter what, there's going to be a lot of context into where you place your units in teamfight tactics. Do they have Blitzcrank? Is there Hex Tech? A lot of things to think about, but I want to include a general placement that you can use against most compositions and be okay. This one here will give the double Guardian buff to Brand and to Shyvana. Ideally, you would put it onto the Swain, but I like having the units here, Evelyn and Swain, apart from each other just in case there is Hex Tech. And I think getting the double Guardian buff on Shyvana is very important because she's going to be dealing a lot of your damage. There's a lot of flexibility here though. You can spread these out. You can even use a box or pocket strat you'll see with some of these other builds if you want. And Evelyn can kind of go anywhere she wants on the board because she's going to jump towards the back line anyway as an assassin. Getting Dragon's Tooth and GA on either Swain or Evelyn or both is a really big pickup, mainly because they're going to die a lot and they're going to want to avoid a lot of the AoE damage that comes in. You can put items on Brand here, but because you have the Swain, the Evelyn, the Shyvana, and the Gnar already, you're going to want to make sure that they get enough items to deal damage by auto-attacking, and so you don't really need the items on Brand as much. Coming up next, let's talk about Demon Sorcerers. This is going to be a flex pick off of the last build we just talked about, Demon Shapeshifters. Again, this still relies a lot on the 4 demon bonus with Evelyn, Brand, and Morgana, but as I mentioned, you can flex 1 or 2 of the demons into different builds. And so if you're not able to pick up the Swain, slotting in an Aatrox gives you that 4 demon bonus. And then you just want to get the Sorcerers going with Morgana, Aurelion Sol, and Karthus. Brand here, because you're doing a lot of magic damage, can pick up a lot of items as well. And then you top this build off with Pantheon and Leona, as with every build in the game right now, because that duo is just unbelievably powerful. I personally like getting a Shogun's and a Rageblade on either Brand or Aurelion Sol, just to make sure they can cast enough and build up enough attack speed. And then for the Karthus, Dragon's Tooth I think is necessary. You'll get Aurelion Sol and the Pantheon getting the Dragon synergy bonus for magic resistance, but I like having the Karthus get magic resistance as well as the Evelyn in the corner there. I personally like RFC again on the Karthus rather than the Rageblade, because this means he won't have to move and he'll be able to cast a lot more without missing that first ultimate, which is crucial for him. Aside from that, it's not too different from the last build. You want to get the Leona and the Pantheon to get a double buff on your tanks, in this case Morgana and Aatrox. I like having Evelyn on the side here so that she will actually jump to your team, because if there's any team that's on the left or middle side of the board, Evelyn will land near your team in this instance and will be able to kind of pull pressure off of your Aurelion Sol, your Brand, and your Karthus, which are going to be dealing the majority of your damage. Items for Evelyn haven't changed much. You got Dragon's Tooth, GA, and then a Gunblade. There's a lot of options you can put in place of the Gunblade. You can get a Death Cap if you want. You can get a Shogun's if you want. You can even get a Rageblade if you want, but I think that's better for ranged damage dealers like Brand, Aurelion Sol, or Karthus. The key aspect here, anytime you run Aurelion Sol, is to get a harsh angle on the enemy team. So Aurelion Sol should be in the bottom left or bottom right of the screen based on where everyone is placed. That way, you're able to get a good spread on hitting all the units. Again, the caution here is that if you know anyone is running Blitzcrank, you want to get him out of there so he doesn't get pulled out. You can easily put an Aatrox in the corner if you know you're going to go up against a Blitzcrank. Coming up next, you're going to see the Ranger Knights build come back in a huge way. The main reason here is Rangers are now more consistent with their chance to proc. It went up to 30 and 70%. It's very easy to get the bonus of the Phantoms with Kindred along with Mordekaiser. You put in the Leona and the Pantheon for the double bonus. And anytime you run Ashe, you need at least 2 Glacial to make sure Ashe is stunning people every time she shoots. And I think along with that, you run Rage Blade with her to make sure that she, by the mid or late stage of the round, she's attacking like an absolute monster and preventing anyone from moving because she's stunning so much. On top of that, because you're getting a lot of attack speed from the 70% chance to double your attack speed on all 4 Rangers, I like getting a bunch of Hushes for this. The extra mana will work great for Kindred and Varus and Ashe to make sure that they can use their abilities more often. And then for Vayne, it just prevents people from getting the ability cast. In fact, most of the time, the natural predator to this Ranger build is going to be anyone that can get a really good teamfight ult off before the Kindred pops her ult. And so being able to hush targets and slow the enemy team down means that your Rangers have more time to deal damage. In this case, I see people running Hurricanes on Rangers, and you can definitely run a Hurricane on the Ashe or the Vayne. I wouldn't put any carry items on Kindred. She attacks way too slow, but the Hurricane does a lot of damage. Personally, for me though, with how much magic damage there is in the current meta with Shapeshifters, Sorcerers, all over the place. In fact, 3 of the 5 top builds right now run Sorcerers. Getting a Dragon's Tooth on Ashe means that she's gonna live the entire fight and wreck everyone, building up her attack speed with that Rage Blade. Pantheon and Leona getting the double stack onto Sejuani here makes sure that she gets her ultimate off. And in this specific lineup, I love running Sejuani with a Guardian Angel because she will be taking the brunt of the damage at the start of the fight, proccing her ult, dying, coming back, and then proccing her ult again, which is exactly what you need for Ranger Knights. You need to be able to proc that ult to slow the fight down. The longer the fight lasts, the more likely you are to win with this Ranger build. Next up is kind of a backup build. In this case, you are still running Sorcerers, but if you're not able to get Demons and you're not able to get Shapeshifters, you can actually flex to a 3 Yordle build, mainly because we know Gnar hits like an absolute truck. And then you want to get that sorcerer bonus, so throw in a Veigar for that sorcerer bonus. Most of the damage is still going to come from Aurelion Sol and Karthus in this case, and then Gnar is going to give you a great teamfight ultimate, which you need without the Sejuani or any extra Shapeshifters on top of that, and then you get the Guardian bonus as well. Again, you want the Aurelion Sol in a space that he's going to actually hit the entire enemy team. Poppy takes the brunt of the damage, and then Mordekaiser will give you the Phantom buff, which is excellent for sorcerer builds. You get the Pantheon and the Leona, of course, for the double stack. And in this case, you want to put the Karthus and the Aurelion Sol on a point where they're not both going to get hit Hextech. If you know the enemy does not have Hextech, you can very easily put them close to each other. You want the Karthus and the Aurelion Sol to be protected as best that you can. Ideally, Gnar would be further out in this build, but I think it's better to box them in here so that you don't expose out your Karthus or your Aurelion Sol to an Evelyn most of the time. And then Gnar, obviously, when he transforms, will jump forward anyway and jump out of the fight. Items here are about the same as the last one, getting extra cast potential for the Aurelion Sol with the Rage Blade and the Shojins, and then getting a Seraph, Dragon's Tooth, RFC for the Karthus. You can flex a second Seraphs or a GA, a Morello's, or even a Rage Blade for the Karthus if you want. There's a lot of flexibility in that build. And lastly, if all else fails, you can still fall back on Void Sorcerer. It still works great. Again, in this case, you're still leading on damage for Aurelion Sol and Karthus for your Sorcerer bonus, and that third Sorcerer needs to come from somewhere. If you look back at the last 5 builds, the Demon Sorcerer compilation uses the Morgana as the third Sorcerer. Yordle Sorcerer will use the Veigar as the third Sorcerer. And in this case, you're going to use Kassadin with the Void bonus. Pantheon and Leona yet again, because they're unstoppable. They're the best duo. They are incredibly powerful. Work towards this every single game if you can. And then obviously you want the Cho'Gath and the Rek'Sai to be in there for the Void bonus. I like putting the Dragon's Tooth on Cho'Gath now because again, you're going to run into a lot of magic damage in the current meta. Frozen Heart on Rek'Sai works great because once she burrows, she'll apply it to everyone that she burrows underneath. And then you want the Kindred in there for the Phantom bonus with the Karthus, and then obviously the great ultimate that she provides. Items for Karthus and for the Aurelion Sol are about the same, though I would recommend putting a death cap on the Aurelion Sol this time because you're relying a lot on Aurelion Sol, Karthus, and Cho'Gath to deal your damage. Having Kassadin and Rek'Sai in this build means you're a little bit more damage light than any of the other builds that we mentioned here today in the top 917 builds list. So getting in a little extra damage with that death cap works great. You can always flex in a death cap for Aurelion Sol or Karthus, but generally if you have a lot of extra damage coming from multiple sources, you don't have to use both your rods for that when they could be gun blades or rage blades or whatever. And of course, getting the Pantheon Leon in there gets the double stack on Cho'Gath and Kindred. I like having the Dragon's Tooth GA Morellos on the Cho'Gath because he hits a lot, but otherwise you can see a lot of flexibility between these builds. They capitalize on the best units in the game right now, which is going to be Aurelion Sol, Karthus, Evelynn, Shyvana, Gnar, the ones we mentioned at the beginning of the video. And there's a lot of flex points here. And I tried to order these in such a way so you can see where the flex points are. So if you start getting a strong Evelynn in the beginning of the game, you know that you can go into Demon Shapeshifters or you can go into Demon Sorcerers. If you get an Aurelion Sol and a Karthus, you can go Demon Sorcerers, Yordle Sorcerers, or Void Sorcerers. And if you see in the beginning of the game, you're getting Dad Ashe, then you want to move into that Ranger Knight build, which is really, really powerful. In fact, if you look at the meta in Korea right now, the Ranger Knight build is the top build in the game and is really difficult to shut down once you get a lot of items on it. And it makes sense why. There's a lot of CC coming from the Glacials, the Guardians keep them alive, you get the Kindred ultimate to make sure nobody dies, and then you're getting tons of on-hit with the Hushes that prevent people from casting and work really, really well. So that's it for this video. I tried to cover what's working right now in the meta from all levels of play all the way up to Challenger, things that make it work and help you understand why it's working the way that it is. If you have any questions for me, please let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitch. I stream every day now, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.